14,070. How to accept the ancestral lineage of your parents, Part 1 of 2. Question. I have come to ask for your wisdom, Master, as I have questions regarding my roots and my spiritual environment. In your previous teachings on ancestral lineages, I learned that we should not discriminate between good and evil spirits, but rather offer blessings chukwan to all deities and spirits with whom we share a connection. However, in my case, the ancestral energies from both my parents' sides are exceptionally strong, which has raised some questions for me. I feel like I inherited about 70% of my mother's disposition, but after my parents divorced when I was in my early 10s, I lived with my father. My biological mother possessed a very intense energy of the deity Sul Sin and Janggun Sin, to the point that she enshrined a sacred pot, Sinju Danji, in her home. Currently, we are estranged. My father later remarried twice, and both of my stepmothers also carried the energy of the deity, keeping the household in constant turmoil. On my father's side, it was a Catholic family that had produced Catholic priests since the time of my grandfather and father. However, after his remarriage, he stopped going to church and resumed performing traditional ancestral rites, Jessa. Furthermore, my uncle's eldest son committed suicide in his 20s, which brought a severe lesson regarding death into our family. Before discovering Yungbub, the true Dharma, I spent my youth since my teenage years wandering through various spiritual paths, studying philosophy, the JMS Church, Buddhism, Protestantism, Catholicism, visiting private shrines, and practicing meditation. After getting married, my wife and I began having severe spiritual battles, which led her to introduce me to Yungbub, bringing me to where I am today. During this upcoming Lunar New Year, my wife and I do not wish to participate in my father's ancestral rites. While we are performing our winter retreat Donggan Geo studies and offering blessings to all our ancestors, my father is conducting traditional rites based on supplicatory faith Gibok. I would like to check if our approach is correct. Furthermore, I humbly ask for your wise guidance, Master, on how I should accept my parents' ancestral lineages and continue my studies.
How old is the person who just asked this question? Questioner, I am in my mid-40s. Yes. In our daily lives, a proper order for living correctly should have been established by now, but because it hasn't, people are still wondering. Everyone is wondering. However, we must understand what we, the Hongyik Ingan's humanitarian leaders, are supposed to do. Let's state the answer first, before we dive into the details. What we need to do is process everything our ancestors have built over thousands and tens of thousands of years. Their knowledge, their ways of living, and what they organized and deemed to be correct. All of this has accumulated and come down to us in the form of knowledge. Among those things they deemed correct, what are the things you just mentioned? Kneeling before gods and spirits was once considered the right thing to do. Also, having intense spiritual energy Sin Bal come down and make our lives difficult. These are also things that have been passed down to us. Our ancestors experienced all of these things as they lived through the ages, and they organized them into what they thought were answers. Those answers became our current societal common sense, that you must pray and cling to God, kneel before Jesus, and beg for help, and beg Buddha for help. But that is just their particular way of coping. It is not the ultimate truth. It simply refers to the act of clinging to something during an era when humanity lacked sufficient mass jilyang and could not do better. That is what we call faith. Believing in a certain faith or a specific deity was the way the world was led during that particular era. When was that era? It lasted throughout the entire time humanity was evolving, up until the point where evolution reached a certain stage. What percentage of evolution are we talking about? The physical and basic evolution of humans is considered to be 30%. It took thousands, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years just to evolve that 30%. After completing that 30% of evolution, a new reorganization took place. How was this reorganization expressed? World War I and World War II broke out on this planet. Through those events, a major cleanup occurred, and the human population was precisely adjusted, leaving 3 billion people on Earth. The rest died. And on the Korean peninsula, 30 million compatriots were left, while the rest died. 30 million and 3 billion. What does this mean? In Korea, one person was left to represent and match 100 people in the rest of the world, Ildang Baik. That is why this land was named the Republic of Korea Daehan Minguk. The people born here after that, starting with the baby boomers, were born into the Republic of Korea with a specific status. They were born as Hongyik Ingan leaders, 1 against 100 in the world. They were raised to eventually play a role that matches 100 people globally. Therefore, the people born in the Republic of Korea after World War II are Hongik Ingans, and they were born specifically to be trained as Hongik Ingan leaders. An immense cosmic project Cheonji Gongsa is underway, but we are wondering because we do not know what it is. Hongik Ingan leaders. How should leaders be raised? They must be equipped with the highest level of knowledge in the world. All the knowledge and culture of mankind were brought into the Republic of Korea. At the very least, the foundations were brought in to teach them knowledge, both knowledge and culture. This process of teaching has been going on for 70 years now. Even if we exclude the time spent adjusting, it has been a solid 50 years. Over the past 50 years, the seeds of human knowledge, culture, and technology have all been brought here. Even if you just sit still, everything is made to come into this land. This is the work of heaven, a masterpiece of God. It is not something we could achieve just because we wanted to. As we equipped ourselves with this knowledge, a major portion of what came in was cultural, specifically religious culture. The reason we are suffering right now is because we have not been able to untangle this religious culture, causing us to wander. Religious culture includes the culture of ancestral rites Jesa, the culture of serving gods, and the culture of honoring ancestors, among many others. There are tens of thousands of different religious cultures, since people are born with different talents. Some are meant to study one area, while others are meant to study another. Everyone's field of study is different. Therefore, the reason the questioner is dealing with this spiritual lineage Sinjul is because you haven't mastered the study of it yet, so you are being made to study it now. A person who has equipped themselves with basic knowledge must then research this. A vast amount of study regarding gods and spirits has entered the Republic of Korea. That culture has arrived. But how should we have handled it? Let me teach you the core principle first, before we unpack this further. This diverse culture came in so that we could engage in comparative religion. We were meant to encounter all of this as knowledge, rather than blindly clinging to Protestantism, Buddhism, or various Taoist sects. We were supposed to experience a little bit of this and a little bit of that without falling deeply into any single one, using it to develop a comparative study of the religious, spiritual, and faith cultures that flowed in from around the world. We weren't supposed to get too obsessed with one painting or one specific piece of work. We were meant to understand what each work represents, compare them, and conduct comprehensive research to unravel these complexities. That is why all of this came to us. However, because we have a bit of this spiritual lineage Sinjul, we fall into it and wonder. For how long? For 30 or 50 years. Then what happens to everything else? As a descendant who has acquired modern knowledge, you visited this place because people said it was meaningful, and you visited that place because people said the same. Because your family went through so much, you tried everything. After trying it all, you reached a point where you felt the need to find your true identity. And that is why you are asking me this question today. When it comes to spirits and gods, if your own spiritual quality Jill is low, they possess a power that tries to ride on you and drag you around. It is the same with human beings. If your quality is low, others have a habit of placing you beneath them and using you. But what if your quality is high? They cannot utilize you. Instead, they must consult with you to resolve matters. Therefore, whether it is a spirit or a human being who is also a spirit in a physical body, it works the same way. The only difference is whether they exist in the third or fourth dimension. The third and fourth dimensions are overlapping. The third dimension is where humans live, act, and grow, while the fourth dimension is where spirits stay and work hand in hand with humans to resolve things that have not yet been settled. This is why the two dimensions are superimposed. They cannot separate even if they wanted to. We live our lives with the third and fourth dimensions intertwined and tangled together. The fourth dimension is where souls, Yonghon, live. Within myself, there is physical body energy, Yuksin-gi, and soul energy, Yonghon-gi. When we shed our physical body, only the soul energy remains. However, while we are alive without shedding the physical body, our physical energy and soul energy are merged and synthesized as we live. Therefore, my true self is originally a God spirit. The entity inside my physical body is a spirit, but because it is non-material energy, it is invisible and cannot be verified physically. You can sense it through perception, but you cannot see it. That is why it is called a non-material energy, soul spirit, Yonghon Sin. This is your true self. The physical body is merely a tool you received. You must have this physical body to discern, develop, and grow. That is why the physical body is incredibly important. We must become people who use our physical bodies correctly, yet we often find ourselves dragged around by them, wandering as we do now. Why? Because we do not know. If you know, it will absolutely never happen to you. It happens because no one has taught us, and we simply do not know. There are things we can figure out on our own, things that a person of higher quality must teach us, and things that an even higher quality person must reveal. Wandering happens because one's intellectual and spiritual mass Jilyang is lacking. Thus, when we wander, suffer, and face difficulties, where do we go? We look for Buddhist monks, Christian pastors, Taoist masters, or people who claim to be spiritual and religious leaders. Why? Because we are hurting. Why is it painful? Because your own mass is insufficient. You are failing to correctly resolve the environments and situations that come before you. Since your mass is lacking, you cannot untangle them. As a result, because you cannot correctly resolve the environments that present themselves, you end up wandering and getting crushed by them. A certain method or situation comes to you as a lesson, but because you cannot resolve it, you wander and get hurt by it. This is how our Hongik Ingan leaders have been wandering for a long time. If this wandering continues for too long, we won't be able to meet the mentors who can help resolve these issues when the rest of the world starts to wander. This is why things have been so difficult up until today. Now, when it comes to resolving this, how should we proceed?